And Vanessa, over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Well, I'm not sure how many of you have been invited in here by either Mark Roseland or Gordon Price, or in our case, Rosemary Cooper. But I'm sure many of you walked in and just started looking around to the people and felt, that we're really kind of a family. And I feel that very much so. I'm actually really grateful to Mark, to Gordon, to Rosie to bring me into this family, and to be having taught for 6 years the Simon Fraser University's course within the Sustainable Community Development, also part of the fourth-year course. But I'm literally here with family, because my older sister, Dagmar, is sitting right there with my brother-in-law, Andrew, who are fabulous people, just so you know. And when we were little, we used to build communities out of, Smurfs, actually. We'd actually charge people in our neighborhood to go to our Smurf land, and we'd design it in a certain way so that disabled Smurf could thrive, so that Mama Smurf would be happy. We kind of changed genders. We did all sorts of things. And those Smurf villages really were our own creation. We started to think, what could these Smurfs be living like? How could they live well? And how would we want to change Smurfland over time? So it was really wonderful many years later for Dagmar and I to be teaching a course called Making Change Happen, where we're really looking at how we make change in our communities as people, not just blue Smurfs. And the thing that we get excited about is making change happen in terms of consumption and production patterns. So as Mark spoke about in his opening remarks, we really are focused on that enoughness that E.F. Shoemaker spoke about, that idea of really achieving maximum well-being with minimum consumption. And we work with groups like the Story of Stuff Project, and Annie Leonard says the goal for sustainable community development should really be less stuff, less toxic stuff, more sharing, more fun. Because really we want to not just do less of the bad things, but really build up the good things. And that's what we found, is that it takes a leadership to nurture the things that are emerging in our society and to take care of some of the daunting challenges we have ahead of us. So I have 2 questions for the people beside me, Nicole and Rosie and Ian. And the first one really is about the key driver that helped them get to their leadership that they showed today. But most importantly, we've found in trying to adjust consumption and production patterns, we can't do it the way that we've been doing it. We really, I'm sure many of you are finding, we needed to take a transformative step in how we're doing this. We really need to step it up. So I think the name of this party is so accurate. So I will ask you, Nicole, in your life, how have you been doing leadership? And most importantly, how are you stepping it up?
Hi, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, perfect.
Okay, timely question. Just briefly, I, as a woman's libber, as a social activist, the idea of helping others came to me late in life, probably about 18 months ago, I would say. So I have reframed how I coordinate the Community Economic Development Program, and very much see my role as being in service to our students. And what that means is I ask myself the questions, how am I creating something that has true value for them and helps them in their life? It also means that I'm incredibly flexible in terms of what my job is. Somebody, I heard once that a principal is only a principal once it costs money. And so I've recently had that test myself, where we do a lot of contract work, and so as soon as I got into the contract training, I could tell that it wasn't enough time, and so we doubled what we were offering the community, because we could tell that to reach the outcome was incredibly important to me. So I'll just leave it at that.
Great, yeah. So you're really talking about those offers, but also the flexibility that you use to really step it up, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you so much, Nicole. Rosie, how about you? What is the key driver in your leadership? How would you step it up?
Well, I'm going to talk about it in the context of the Certificate Through the City program, which I think it reflects, the folks who are in that program reflect my own career. So I've worked as a community organizer and mobilizer for highly collaborative community-based processes, but I've also worked within the system. So I have worked within local and regional government as well. And so one of the things that I think is really key is that we kind of, the way to step it up to reach this transformative change is to get into taking sort of really systems approaches, thinking about approaches and tools and strategies where we get ruthlessly honest about whether what we're doing has been making any difference, and using those sort of metrics and approaches to think about what are the things that we need to do, what are the areas that we need to focus on to make transformative change so that we're really moving towards ecological and more just communities, and looking how everybody can be part of the solution. So what is it, if we're focusing on something like zero waste, let's recognize the game changers out there, like the Strathcona BIA with their green zone and their resource park, their on-site micro-industrial composting, and then the person who works within local government needs to say, what is it that I can do to support that game changer? And if you talk to the folks there and you look at their wonderful process diagram, it was kind of a gray regulatory area, and they had lots and lots of chats, and it took a long time. So now kudos to the folks at Metro Vancouver who are saying, well, how is it that we can chat with them and create kind of a streamlined process so that other municipalities can support this? So I think it's part of it. I think that it's social enterprises are part of the solution, land developers. I'm going to take something from what Ian said that I loved. I am agnostic in many respects about the means and tenacious about the ends, and I think we're all part of the system. So that I think is sort of a key part to systems-based leadership.
Great, thanks, Rosie. Yeah. So inclusive, ruthlessly honest systems, game changers that also get picked up by the larger institutional players, and who cares who those are, really? Ian, what do you think about this? Well, who cares? But actually, they need to have those ethics at the heart of it. Ian, what would you think about the stepping it up in terms of leadership?
So I'm a former journalist, so I'm going to be ruthlessly dishonest because
Why
that's
not?
kind of what we're known for. No, I mean, I think Rosie's got a good point, but my contribution, I'm finding myself going back to storytelling, going back to narrative development, because frankly, I was in the trenches for 20 years running EcoTrust, and I think we did some amazing things, and it's just not enough. So I think, I'm not sure about the step-up stuff. I don't even like that language much. I think wake up would be a good thing. I mean, I think we need to wake up to the fact that the two most important imperatives in the 21st century are poverty and the environment. Poverty, which is ruining the lives of billions of people who are alive, and what we're doing to the environment is ruining the futures of billions of people who aren't alive. So, I think those are the things we need to kind of step into. You might think then that we need more environmental activists and more social policy wonks working on poverty, but frankly, we haven't done a very good job of disrupting the generations of economic and political leadership that have made things the way they are. You people are weird. I mean that in the Jared Diamond nomenclature, Western, educated, industrialized, rich and democratic. So you're all weird. I don't think Jared Diamond means that as a compliment, mind you. But at least we're good people, right? We're working hard on the right things, but is that enough? I don't think so. W.H. Auden once wrote that we're all here on the earth to help others. And then he famously added, what on earth the others are here for, I have no idea. So all of this is to say, whatever we've done to date in the realm of sustainability isn't enough. Whatever we've done to date in the realm of poverty reduction or poverty alleviation isn't enough. We talk about change, we're actually lousy at it in some ways. If we're going to step up, I'll concede the phrase, we need to get really good at change, because the people who are really good at change on the other side of the ledger are changing things faster than we are. They're doing a better job of making things worse. So finally, in November we had a little planning session for this event, and I kind of rashly stood up and said that I thought the centre should be renamed, 25th anniversary, and actually it seems like renaming the centre is something that does Yeah, relatively often. So I thought we should rename the centre for the Centre for Transformation and Disruption. But,
That'd be good.
but I actually came to think that maybe this acronym CSCD, it's got a nice ring to it, so not change the acronym, but without changing the acronym one jot, I think that what our weird world needs now is 25 years of a CSCD, but I would call it the Centre for Survivable Community Development. And I'm not sure we can survive without it. Thank you.
Great, thanks again.
Got a good segue from that.
You know, and part of our idea was really to think about what it means to either step in or wake up, or as you say, to really look at transformation. And one of the things that many of you, I'm sure, since you were young, have felt kind of compelled to certain things. Since I was about 15 or 16 years old, I thought of that we have such a good imagination around what the problem is. We know what that looks like, but we actually do a very poor job of imagining the possible. And Mark Roseland talked a bit about this with the Small is Possible book that he was mentioning. And I think, you know, what we're doing with One Earth, with my nonprofit, is collaborating with science fiction writers, with filmmakers, with animators, to start looking at compelling, attractive images of what life and sustainable futures might look like. And the project is called Disruptive Imaginings, Experiential Futures, and it really is about creating a new narrative about where we're going. And that's the question I have for you three, Nicole, Rosie, and Ian. You know, I have a sense that in order to get to the disruption that Ian was mentioning, that systemic change, that inclusive change, that flexibility that we need, that I really feel that a new narrative might be part of it, a new framing. So Ian's gotten us started off, and I'm going to ask you, Nicole, what is the new narrative for sustainable community development, and how are we going to get there?
Okay, well, not the new narrative, but how about a piece
How
of the
about
story?
many new narratives?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing is I would say looking for leadership in non-traditional places would be something that we've had a lot of success for. We've actually introduced a leadership course to our program this year. And we did that because when I went back and I asked the students, the alumni, graduates from many years past, you know, what are you doing? You love this topic of cooperatives or social enterprise. And there were too many people that were coming back and saying, it's not my job to do that. So I really want to be doing that, but it's not my job. And so we introduced this leadership course so that people could change the way they feel about that. Mm-hmm. And it's actually having a remarkable impact. We just finished our last week right now. So I would say never underestimate how powerful fear can be and how much it can hold people back. And also similarly, don't underestimate how quick you can change that fear and how quickly you can get rid of it by giving people an experience to grow and expand their comfort zones. So we definitely need, it's all hands on deck right now, and there are people in communities all across BC that are just waiting for an opportunity to experience something different than what they've experienced. You know, maybe they've only experienced structural poverty their whole lives. We can give them a different experience as educators, without a doubt.
Thanks, Nicole. Rosie.
Well, I'm going to pick up on the concept of disruption because I think that's actually a place for hope. And I'm going to borrow some of this inspiration from Gordon Price, who's the director of the CITY program. We're actually currently putting together a new certificate called Next Generation Transportation. And one of the things that Gordon talks about that I think is fabulous is that we need to see disruption as a creative moment for change. So when we see things like extreme weather events like the floods in the city of Calgary, that's a wonderful moment for all of those who get sustainability to align restoration budgets with things that will make our communities more ecological and more just, and particularly around things like climate adaptation and mitigation. But also in places like the city of Surrey, for example, right now, you know, we're starting to see that we might have up to about a 25% increase in energy prices. Well, that's a wonderful way to frame something like a community energy plan that they've called Energy Shift. and not just talk about climate change that's really in the background. It's more about cost savings for the municipality and cost savings for individuals. Because when folks who aren't so well off, their household energy costs go up 25%, that's a significant, hit. So I think that disruption is actually an opportunity, and I think we should all try and seek those creative moments from the disruption and from the things that will be happening as we move ahead.
Great,
And
thanks,
be
Rosie.
strategic about it.
Yeah, great, thank you.
I'm more optimistic.
Ian, what do you think?
I'm a little less optimistic, but I'm no less encouraged. I'm not going to read out to you. I did a little map for myself today of what it's going to take to avert the catastrophic effects of climate change. And in 25 years, we need to find a way to generate 13 trillion watts of clean energy per year that we're not producing at the moment. And I could give you the map of why that's actually not possible in the current framework, but I won't bore you with that. But it's actually not possible. It includes nuclear, it includes a scale of investment and intervention in our economic and energy cycles that we are just not up for. So James Lovelock recently, he's 94 years old now, he's kind of old and crotchety, maybe like me, so I'm not 94. But he was sort of saying, look, get over it, something nasty's happening to the climate. Let's figure out how to adapt to it. It's going to be hotter. It doesn't have to be worse. But that's why something like disruption, not just of what we do in our daily lives. We need to disrupt the politics of this country and of the world. We need to disrupt the economic pieties by which we currently live, which are just wrong. Look at what happened in the last election. What was right about that? And yet here we are. We've stuck that up for another 4 years. We need to disrupt all of these institutional approaches, which are completely outdated. They're completely outmoded for the current challenges. And we're not going to get there through investment. We're not going to get there through just voting in slightly less bad guys than last guys. So absolutely we need a transformational and disruptive approach to absolutely everything we do. The narrative part about it is actually the cultural part that's really interesting and inspirational, and that's where I get the most hope. We have First Nations people in this country who are just coming out of one of the worst periods that any civilization has ever gone through. They've proven their resilience, their adaptability, their ability to hold on to story and to continue to tell their story is the only thing they retain through those periods. We're in for a dark age, there's no doubt about that. Our ability to tell good stories to each other, to tell the stories that you heard around the side of the room tonight and through the conversations at the table, to repeat those stories, to expand them, that's about the only strength we've got. On a technological base, we cannot win. On a cultural base, we can actually win.
Great, thank you, Ian. Yeah. So Nicole reminded us that we can look to many different types of leaders and also not be surprised how we can turn fear into actual possibility for change. And Rosie really looked at these disruptive moments as opportunities. How do we actually look at them as opportunities? And if Ian's right, we need to disrupt a lot of things. It might be everything. And in fact, we could look to other cultures to see how they've been adaptive over time. And I would really like to thank Joanne Ashworth, who's been the kind of a key leader as part of the CSCD programs and the dialogue programs, and who brought us together as a panel to really think about how to step up around leadership. We look forward to speaking with you further about that, but most importantly, to, as Ian was challenging us to think about, what is the next iteration for the next 25 years of this particular, this entity, this home that so many of us have gone through, and what is the next cutting edge? So maybe some of these ideas could help form that, and many of the ideas you have in this room. So I'll pass it back with that, and thank you so much.